Just in the question box for me, if you could let me know, just a simple thing to start with. Are you currently using social media inside of your business marketing strategy right now? Really, really important to know because it gives me a bit of an idea of the detail that I want to be able to go into. So Janet to yes, Richard to yes. Okay, so we've got a few people tuning in, which is good. LinkedIn only for Lorna, that's fine. So we've got a number of different social media users. Some people are using it more than others, which is great. Now, what I want to do really throughout this presentation is give you, like I say, that structure that you're looking for to be able to make sure that you're generating results and not wasting time. So if you want to connect with me online, you can see here my Instagram handle is where I spend a lot of my time, but I also am an avid user of LinkedIn as well. So if you type in Chris Taylor, there's loads of them that come up, but if you then type in Instagram or you type in Gramication, which is my corporate company, you'll see that I come up. So I'm sure we can connect offline or online after this presentation, most definitely. So today I'm going to be going through how you can build your personal brand, leveraging your business stuff at the same time. But one is actually going to generate you results whilst also linking in the power of telling your story. Because for me, this is the thing that so many people miss out on. They get trapped in this almost informational giving method where actually they think that all things everybody wants to know is actually based around the content, when actually I talk a lot about the context. And I'm going to be going into that in a bit more detail for you as to how you can generate results and how it's actually not all about the information and more about you as an individual. Because it's all right creating content, it's all right creating a personal brand, it's all right creating a business brand, but the actual thing that we need to be asking ourselves is, what on earth do we then do with it? Because I know there's so many people that teach social media, they teach marketing online. You may know a few of them out there, and they tell us that we should be posting 100 times a day. We should be creating content on every single social media platform. We need to be absolutely everywhere. But nobody really tells us why. They reason it and connect it with things like, oh, you're going to be able to generate more leads. You'll be able to build your brand. You'll be able to expand your company. But ultimately, unless we can have personal context connected to this activity, there's no way you're going to be able to remain consistent with it. And that's the thing that I really want to dive deep in, because when I first started this, for those of you that don't know who I am, I've been in business for around about 3 and a bit years now. I started when I was 23. I'm 26 now. And I was seeing so many people generate financial results online. And I was fascinated because I was working in the corporate industry. I was working for a company called ALD Automotive. They're a car leasing company, and I loved where I worked. But I was seeing so many different ads online of people showing me how to, you've probably seen the odd one or two, how to get rich quick. All of these different fads, all of these different stories of people that have been and generated a lot of success. And I was actually starting to look, and I mean, these are some of the results that we've been able to generate, but like in terms of revenue generating, when you get this right, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, whether it's product, service, health practitioners, whatever it is that you do, there's opportunity out there to be able to generate revenue when you have the right social media marketing strategy. Now, I spend the majority of my time now working in and out of consultation roles. So I have my own corporate company, which is called Gramication. We are a content marketing agency. I spend also a lot of time talking about these specific subjects. So I spoke at a lot of high income generating businesses, giving them, I guess, my 2 cents on social media, very similar to what I'm doing for you today. And I also do a lot of content creating myself. Ironically, my time is actually spent creating a lot of content, and when I talk about it at the same time. So my life was really built off the fact of the digital marketing space. And that's the stuff that I really want to go into. So again, this is really, really key, because I was 3 years ago, although I used social media, I didn't use social media, if that makes sense. I used it for like my personal life. I used it to kind of contact friends and network with people, but it was never in a business capacity. And when I first started my first company, which was a property business, I started to do a little bit more research. And I started to have a look into all the different ways in which like the online space really worked. And I came across this stat. Now, in the comments for me, can anyone guess what that number represents in the online world right now? And I'll give you a golden guess. I'll give you 10 seconds to have a guess of what it is, because it's really, really significant in the way that this whole digital marketing space works. And for me, when I saw it, and when I then looked at my own, I was gobsmacked with what I saw. So Ace has gone with followers. It's not followers. View of content. That's getting closer, Richard, in terms of the way that we go. It's actually the average minutes per day that somebody spends on social media. Now, when I saw that, I was like in a little bit of shock. That's 3 hours, right? That's 3 hours per day. And in lockdown, that's actually gone up to 200 minutes on average per day that someone spends on social media, whether that is checking LinkedIn first thing in the morning, at lunchtime, and then in the evening, and scrolling through pointless stuff, whether it's creating their own versions, right? 3 hours is around about the time people are spending on their phones. And I thought, you know what? I was consuming at that point in my life. So 3 years ago, I was consuming. I was the person that was reading and digesting and watching all of this, in inverted commas, amazing content out there, the stuff that was put out there to brainwash me. And I thought, if I could actually turn this around and leverage that and spend that 3 hours working behind and on my online strategy for my businesses, then how effective would that time actually be? So I went out and I made the commitment to actually start putting myself out there and telling my story online. So this was back when March 17th, 2018. This was the start of my business journey, and you can see this is on Instagram. And again, you can see at the time, like, I didn't really have much of a following. I was doing this on LinkedIn and I was doing it on Facebook. And what I was simply doing was showcasing my story, showcasing my journey. So this was a few weeks later. At this point, by the way, I wasn't posting every day. I wasn't on it like an extreme maniac like all these people are telling you to be. I was just creating one post a week at this point, just telling people what I was doing, showcasing what I was doing. This was the second property that we ever had. This was a business planning session. This was when I launched our first book at the time. And again, this was the point at which I started to see some real results from this. Like from March in 2018 to January 2019, I went from probably reaching around about 200 to 300 people per post to reaching around about 11 to 12,000 people per post. And the journey kept going from there. And you can see none of this is spectacular video recorded content. This is just static images, because in reality, I didn't really know what I was doing at this point. And again, as we go on throughout the journey, you can see all I did was remain consistent week after week. Then it was every other day, and now it's every single day. And what happened was, because I was generating such big results from social media, from my property business, where it came from raising finance, to then other businesses reaching out and basically wanting to know how I was doing everything. And it was at that point that I started consulting, I started public speaking, I went on a speaking course, and I started to actually generate these skills that are going to help me grow the consulting and now agency side of our company. But again, all of this stuff being online really started to turbocharge the way that my business was growing. I was getting access to audiences and opportunities of people just reaching out and wanting to work with me that I would never have got before. And this was the biggest ever speaking event that I ever did. This was in front of 600 people. It was actually at the smaller version of Wembley, although I like to say I've spoken at Wembley and ticked that box off, but it actually wasn't. It was the Hilton Hotel, which was next door to Wembley. But this was where I was breaking down the real power of social for the first time in front of a big crowd. Now, to get to that position, what I've been able to do over this last 18 months specifically, when I've started to really take social media seriously and digital marketing seriously, is identify a process that I'm going to take you throughout this afternoon, throughout this evening, and actually really break down what it is that you need to be doing from the start to the end to be able to generate results from digital marketing. Now, the first thing is the most important part of it all. It's getting clear on what it is specifically that you are actually using social media for. So getting complete clarity on your message and your mission. The second is the creative part. So you are going to have to do some form of creating to be seen online right now. There's so much opportunity out there to generate attention. So creating is the second step. We're then going to look at all the different ways in which we can keep ourselves consistent and the ways in which we can start to scale and actually being able to show up every single day without manually having to do it ourselves. We're then going to show you the most important part of social media activity. So this is during the process of being on social media, and that's how you communicate. And then the biggest way to grow right now, the biggest way to be able to scale your brand at speed, whether it is personal or business brand, tying in your story throughout every single step of it. So let's get straight into it. So step one is getting clear, having complete clarity. And this has all come from really the best bit of advice I ever got given in business. And it happened around about 6 months in. That was the point at which I started to take this stuff seriously. And it was the more people that know what you do, the more opportunity will come your way. Now, when people tend to look at that quote, I can't remember there's actually a big famous person that actually says this. However, it was my mentor at the time that relayed it back to me. So the more people that know what you do, the more opportunity will go your way. So at this point, I wasn't particularly all in on social media. This was prior to my business really taking off. So what I actually thought that was physically going out to networking events. So like at that point, I was driving to networking event after networking event. I had a company car with my old job, and I was going as far, I live in Northampton, so I was going as far south as Brighton and as far north as just the tops of Cumbria, and actually going to all the different networking events, just basically showing my face and telling people what it was that I was doing. And what I realized was, after clocking up all those miles, that it really wasn't doing what I thought it would do. Yes, I was getting known. Yes, I was getting opportunity, but I thought there must be a better and more efficient way of doing this. There has to be. And that was where I started to really take actually social media seriously, because I thought, if I'm driving to rooms of 20 to 30 people and shaking everybody's hand, getting in their faces, telling them what I did, finding out a bit more about what them, collecting all those business cards that I did, then I thought, you know what, why don't I just take that concept and do it online? So rather than going out and physically meeting people, but sending direct messages, actually looking to proactively connect with people on LinkedIn and not just letting them sit there and not actually do anything on my profile, but proactively reaching out, not to sell them something, but just to build a relationship, to see if there's any way that we could do business together. And what I realized was that there are two things throughout the whole of this process that you need to be clear on. You need to be clear on what it is specifically you want to be known for, and actually what pain and problems that you're going to help people solve on your social media profiles. And you need to know what it is that you're actually going to be selling to these people at the point at which that you've built up the know, like, and trust so they're ready to transact. When I identified what these things were, and again, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, if you can position yourself as one of the top people in your field, and you have a product and service that people can buy that's actually going to deliver them true value and solve the pain and the problem that they have, then this is solely what we need to be addressing on all of our social media accounts. So you need to be looking at your LinkedIn profile, need to be looking at your Instagram account, and actually starting to focus in on whether it actually communicates that message as well as it needs to be, or as well as it could do. Because if it doesn't, that's where we need to do the first bit of work. Because when you are clear on your message, there is one thing above all else that you need to do before you move on to the second step of creating. And that is being 100% confident on those 2 points. You need to be 100% confident on the person that you're going to show yourself as online. 9 times out of 10, I hope it's going to be the authentic version of you, but there is the odd 1 out of 10 that don't do it. I'm going to show you that you need to be pushing the authentic, real version of you out there. And you need to be then really, really confident on the offer that you're putting out there, that it can actually deliver the value that you're showcasing it will. Because when you have that level of confidence, you can start to put out content which connects, which engages with people. And the thing is, you are all serious experts in what you do on this webinar, on this masterclass tonight. You know you're good at what you do. Now, to translate that message and put that online so other people can get that message too, you need to demonstrate and showcase how good you really are. And there's a few ways in which we can do that, which we're going to cover through tonight. But if I show you some familiar faces, now you may not know Sara Blakely, but Tony Robbins, Sara Blakely, Gary Vaynerchuk, Oprah Winfrey, and Elon Musk, right? You need to be 100% like these people are. If you watch any of their content online, there's two things that they are. Number one is they are completely clear on the message that they're trying to portray online. And remember, looking at all these different people, they all have different businesses, they all have different missions. But if you look at their content, it is so specific to what they do that that's how they've been able to build the brand. And if you actually look at it, there is no shadow of doubt that they know what they're talking about. And the confidence that they show online is a thing that attracts people to them. For me, it is so, so important. And before you move on to that step number two, you need to be 100% confident on what you're doing. And that's the stuff in which I do a lot of consulting on. It's how you become social media confident. Because again, these people, the most influential people out there, confidence is the thing that actually separates them. They probably teach the same, it's not probably, they actually say the same things as what people that aren't as famous as them say, but they get better results because they deliver it in a way which connects to their audience. Confidence only comes from clarity. So that section there, what it is that you want to be known for and what your offer is going to be, is vital. And once you've done it, once you've broken that down, and once you're so clear on your message, you can then move on to step number two, which is creating. Now, when you look at all the different social media platforms out there, it can be so, so overwhelming, right? And again, you may all have your favorite platforms that you show up on. But again, when you're showcasing and trying to show up in so many places, it can be very, very tiring. And what I want to show you is where I would spend my time. Because right now, there is definitely certain platforms, especially in your world, where you're going to see some very, very clear results. And I don't think it will shock you. I mean, one of them, the fact that they're not on the list may do, but in terms of organic brand building stuff, these three platforms for me stand out an absolute mile. The first is Instagram. Now, whether you're business to business or business to consumer, Instagram is a way to visually showcase what it is that you're doing and build a brand that connects to you as the individual. You then have LinkedIn, which is very focused in on the B2B space, but again, B2C is still there. But again, with the way that the organic content is working right now, the way the LinkedIn algorithm works right now, it's definitely a place to be. And the third place that I think a lot of people neglect, and I think it's because it's the one that takes the most amount of time, is YouTube. Because for me, like, I don't think many people know this, but YouTube is actually the second largest search engine in the world. So if you're working on SEO and you're working on Google right now, then you 100% need to be focusing in on demonstrating how good you are on a platform like YouTube, and then doing what we call a repurposing process, which then enables you to show up on platforms like Instagram and LinkedIn, something that I'm going to showcase for you throughout this presentation this evening. Now, to keep things simple, in reality, you need to be creating your content for the places where your ideal target market are located. Because I'll be honest with you at this point, I say this in every single time that I talk, I actually don't really like social media. And I know that's probably hard to believe, but I don't. I actually think it's very, very poisonous in the way that it works. And the fact that we spend more times with our head in our phones than we do with real life people that are actually sitting in our company right now is ridiculous. There's probably one or two of you right now that are already scrolling through your phones at this current point rather than paying attention. That's right, I caught you. But in reality, right, I'm not a massive fan of it. I'm on it purely because to grow my business, it is the place where I can generate the results that I'm looking for. It is the place where I can generate the leads and the prospects that I'm looking for to be able to scale at speed. If you don't have a social media marketing strategy right now, then you're missing out on so many prospects that are just waiting to find out who you are. And for me, this used to be 8 types of content. You have to forgive the flaw in the presentation here. There's actually 3 key content groups and 6 content types. So I'm going to break this down for you and take you through it step by step. The first key content type is what we call attraction type content. And there's 2 main sections to this, which I'm going to break down. The second part is once you've attracted new people towards you with your content, you then need to connect. You then need to build trust. You then need to really focus in on creating the energy which is going to make them buy into you as an individual and as a business. And then you move on to the real connection building, trust building content, So the ACT model there for me is so vital. And attraction, bringing new people towards you, connecting with them and developing trust is broken down into these 3 sections. Now, the first attraction type piece of content is what we call, and you can probably most commonly know this one, it's consultative content. So it's otherwise known as educational type content. So the stuff where you know that your ideal audience has questions, you know that they need advice, you know that they need help, so you tell them what they need to do. And I've got an actual specific process that I'm going to take you through, which is going to enable you to create content really easily, especially in these formats. But consultative content is all about providing education. The second form of attraction generating content is actually controversial. Now, this doesn't actually need to be as big as the controversial topics there are potentially out there in the world right now. It doesn't have to be about coronavirus. It didn't have to be about Black Lives Matter. It doesn't have to be around that sort of stuff, but it can be things that are happening inside your industry, that may be inside your industry type news magazines, on your industry news type websites, which you have an opinion on, which you can openly talk about and bring towards you. By being controversial, by having what we call an opinion and presenting that online, you're going to generate more and more awareness for yourself and bring more people towards you. So important. Once you've then attracted new people to it, you can then go into the first connection type piece of content, which is it's cultural content. Now, cultural content can be one of 2 things. One of them is like the developments inside your company, any exciting news that's going on within your business. But I also do it as a fact of a way of documenting what I do. So if you flip back to the Instagram photos that I showed you at the beginning, that was cultural type content for me. That was me documenting my business journey. That was showcasing what I was doing, why I was doing it, and what I was learning, which added more credibility to me, which then generated more opportunity for me, so I knew I could scale. The 4th type is then communication, and this is like a bit of a cheat sheet, because when you can actually communicate with people, and what I mean by that content type is simply putting out a post which is like, look, I want to try and serve all of you as much as I possibly can. What questions do you currently have that would really help you move forward right now? Like publicly putting that out there and then collecting the data as you go along. Communicating with people when you don't have the content ideas is one of the best ways to be able to generate inbound questions, which you can then create as content. This, for me, when we move on to trust, the credibility type content is the stuff that you should be posting the most about. This should take up around about 60% of your overall content. Because actually, if you think about this in terms of what your customers and what your prospects are actually looking for before they make a buying decision with you, they want to make sure that you know what you're talking about. They want to make sure that you can solve the problem that they currently have. And 3, they want to know that you're working with others that demonstrates actually how good you really are. So again, whether that's case studies, whether that's results that you're getting, whether that is just you showcasing your clinic, your whatever it is that you're doing right now, really showcasing that out there to showcase that you know what you're doing, your business knows what you're doing, and you're the people that people need to choose to work with. Because once you've done that, once you've got the right balance, and I'm sure that'll be a question that comes up shortly, once you've got the right balance of consultative, controversial, cultural communication, credibility, and conversion type content, that will then generate you the prospects and then the customers that you're looking for. And when I say conversion type content, this isn't a traditional buy my stuff post. What we're looking to do is quite simply build up the number of contacts that sit on our database and actually asking people whether they want more value from us in trade for their email address and phone number so we can nurture the relationship further. More to come on that towards the end of the presentation, because there is actually a caveat to all of this, because I know looking at all of that, it may seem a little bit overwhelming. And what I want to do is really strip that back, because it doesn't have to be. Because you don't have to actually try and do everything all at once. And you don't need to be creating new content every single day. This is the mistake that so many people make. They don't leverage their time, they don't net their time, and they end up forcing themselves to create when they don't want to and they don't have the time to, and therefore they just find any old reason to actually give up. So I'm here to tell you that you need to stop doing that. And the simple shortcut, if you do carry on doing that stuff, is quite simply burning out, overwhelm, and like I said, giving up. Because if you look online right now, and again, I've got some examples that I'm sure you'll love right now, and this is stuff that literally I found over the last 3 days online, but people that are just simply posting, one, because they've been told to, two, because they don't have any ideas, so they put something up, and three, because they actually think that just showing up is enough, and it isn't anymore. Because I've actually scrolled through and I've seen literally over the last couple of days content pieces like this. Now, I've blanked out their names, this is not particularly fair, but this is a social media agency. And when I talk about like making sure that you provide value, making sure that you actually stand out from the crowd, every single piece of content that you do, like I said, needs to fit between one of those 6 content themes. Now, for me, I look at this and I go, well, why as a consumer would I be interested that it's raining and cold outside? Not sure. Why as a consumer, and this person is a affiliate marketer, so something a little bit different from you guys, but an affiliate marketer that's looking to generate sales for her products, that's just taken a picture of some swans. And then you have another specific agency, it's actually a website building company, that's just pitched me something. Like every website builder comes with its pros and cons. However, I strongly believe that, and it goes on to say, this is why you need to choose us. That has a sale involved in that piece of content, and therefore automatically turns people off. These bits of content come from the fact that people don't have ideas and they don't know what they need to be posting. And I'm going to give you the structure that's going to enable you to avoid getting to this position and start actually creating stuff that's going to generate you prospects. Because remember, we need to be focused. We don't want to be spending all day, every day on social media. It's just not going to give us the results. We want to be efficient, and we want to make sure that we're only spending the time that brings people closer to our sales process, brings us closer to us actually generating prospects and then customers. Because what we need to do is create content that triggers pain, makes people aware of the problems that are out there that you solve, and actually follows a structure so we're not having to flipping blow our brains trying to work out what we need to be creating. We need to keep our audience engaged. So just so I know everybody's still awake, and I've spoken there for a little while, would you like to know the content structure that you can do in writing format or video format that's going to enable you to create engaging content every single time that you create? Give me a yes if that's something that you are proactively looking for whilst I take a quick drink. So Drew's ready for it. Fiona's ready. Everybody's alive. I haven't bored and sent people to sleep yet, which is great news. So the first one, step number 1, I'm going to give you an example of this as we go through it. I'm actually going to create a piece of content for me this evening, which will probably go out in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. So I'm going to give you a demonstration. But the first step is highlighting a problem. So your exercise, if you've never done this before, is get a bit of paper out, and on one side of the paper, write down all the pains and problems that your business, your product, your service, and what you specifically like to help people solve. Every single one, create the list. Then on the right-hand side of the paper, what I then need you to do is write down all the different solutions, all the different things that you can do which helps people overcome that pain or problem. That's step number 1. Go through that exercise so you have a list of all your problems ready to be able to go through. Step number 2 is then the piece that everybody seems to forget. Now, the majority of people when creating content, they may trigger a pain or a problem. They may just actually provide the third step, which I'm going to come on to, but they just provide information. But they don't actually showcase why that thing is actually important for our consumers to actually be aware of. Adding context is the stuff that makes us unique. Adding context is the story element to content, which is going to enable us to connect with our audience. Remember, part of that content formula is connection, and context and the reason why is what enables us to build those relationships. The third bit is actually where people spend too much time. They spend too much time telling people how to sort their problems out, and that is the biggest mistake number one. The most important part of content is not giving people the solution. It's telling people why they need to solve the problem and why it's so important for them, and then giving them something that they can do, which may overcome it, but actually making them reach out to you with step number 4, which is the call to action. So a common piece that I'm going to record right now, I'm just going to pick my phone up and just turn my tripod on because I record a lot of the stuff that goes through. But one of the common problems that I come across is the fact that people do not know how to build a pipeline on social media right now. Now, over the past 18 months, I've been building, structuring, and creating a system which enables us to actually really focus in and create engaging content every single day of the week, whilst also bringing and generating inbound inquiries to our inboxes. Now, if this is something that you want to do, then you simply need to do one thing and one thing only. You need to be making sure that you are organized, you are structured, and you understand the pains and the problems that you're looking to try and trigger, so you can actually generate the people's inquiries because they need your help. If this is something that you need help with, you need assistance with, then just drop me a message. Like, reach out to me. Don't bother commenting below. Like, just reach out to me, message me, and we can have a unique conversation, one-to-one, just going through exactly how we can start to put a strategy together, which is going to start enabling you to generate those inbound leads that you're looking for. I'll see you all soon. Something that's so simple. So the problem was the fact that they're not able to generate inbound leads, pipeline, not able to build their pipeline. The context was the reason why, was the fact that I've been doing it for 18 months, building a system that enables them to generate engaging content every single time. The content itself was they need to be structured, they need to be organized, and need to make sure that they have a system to be able to follow every single time. And the call to action was not the typical comment below your thoughts. It was actually more of, just drop me a message. Let's have a human conversation and see how we can develop things further. If you've got the problem, reach out to me. Identify the problem, add the context, give them small bits of content, don't overwhelm them, and then a solid call to action. You can do that in writing in form of a blog or a caption. You can do that via a video like I've just done there. But that 4-step process, and again, remembering that the context part is the most important part, is what's going to enable people to come towards you. Having that solid call to action at the end where it's not just comment below, it's again going to be the stuff that brings people towards you. Because when you know that structure, and again, you don't need to do what I've said here, the 15-minute video. It could be a 3-4 minute video, but just talking about the pain and the problem, talking about the context, talking about the content itself with a call to action, you can take, and this is how we don't have to create new content every day. You can either get a virtual assistant that we currently have that works in the Philippines to do this for us, to do the editing, to do the repurposing, or you could pass it out to an agency like us to be able to do for you. It's up to you in the way that you do it, or you can do it yourself. Like, there's certain systems which you can use. But you pick up your phone, you don't need complex video camera equipment, and you do a video following that structure. What you can then do is turn that video into carousel posts. So separate bits of information. You may have seen them on Instagram where you swipe across and there's different slides that you can see. They're like a mini presentation. You can do quote cards. So like maybe you've said something inside that video which stands out, which you can then use and actually put out there using Canva to develop it. You can create infographics. So again, in your niche, in your industry, infographics, using the information and the content that you've created inside that video, you can then create an infographic for it. You can simply get onto a site like rev.com, use a site like Otter, and actually get this content transcribed, and then you can actually use that as a blog. You can turn it into documents, you can turn it into guides that people can download so they have free and access from you. You could simply strip the audio and create audiograms using an app like Headliner. Or you could actually create a podcast from the video that you're doing. Like, all of this stuff to be able to build brand only requires you creating one marketing system which does it for you. You can then put that onto sites like Instagram and LinkedIn, and you've got from maybe 2 videos a month, 30 pieces of content that you can use, which is identifying a problem, giving the context, giving the content with a call to action to give you a call or to give you a message to have their problem solved. That content can then be distributed everywhere else using a social media management tool like a Buffer or a Hootsuite. Like, for me, I know this sounds like overwhelming, but we're talking 2 videos here to sort out a month's worth of content for you, which will start to generate you business. So where people are spending day after day trying to come up with idea after idea, you don't actually have to do that. You connect your story in the context and you just have the right systems in place to be able to generate it. Because remember, you don't need to be everywhere to begin with. You simply need to be somewhere. And then you follow that strategy to repurpose with very little time whatsoever to be everywhere else. So you create simply one piece of content using that video structure, using that written structure. You then drive people. This is how you generate the business. The people that then reach out to you, the people that then look to communicate with you, you send them a direct message, which is not to sell them something, but to give them added value, but with a call to action to have a unique discussion. And then you run, and we use scripts to do this, but you can have your own conversations with people to be able to do it. But you basically, in normal language, you use a sales process, a sales script to drive people into your unique website sales process, which generates more business for you. One piece of content, one type of communication, one sales process, and you leverage and create the system which enables your story to travel and your brand to grow without the specific time and effort every single time. Now, step number 3 is then, great, Chris, but how on earth do I do that whilst also having a clinic or once I'm still having a full-time business to then run? Now, what I want to highlight to you here is the importance of remaining consistent. Because actually, like, there's so many different people in so many different industries that have been able to create huge brands for themselves when they didn't even want to, by the way. They did it again. They were on social media because someone told them it was a good thing to do. But they did it, and they've managed to create business opportunities that they never thought was possible. And this person isn't in your industry, but she is in what we call the fashion industry. Now, Emily was a customer of ours. She was a client of ours. And you can see in March 21st, 2019, Instagram was the profile that she used because that was the one that she loved the most. She picked one platform. She created one unique piece of content and started to publish that. If you then look, the difference in what a year makes of consistently posting once every other day was what she did. She was able to build a huge, huge following. And this can happen in literally any industry, in any business model. For me, it was knowing it was possible that made me force myself to do this and make sure that I had a system in place that helped me do it without it taking too much of my time and attention. Now, Emily's growth, you can see from June of last year when she did this. Now, she had a bit of a following back then because she had been growing, but from 40,000 all the way up to 90,000 followers just on Instagram. Her life has completely changed from this stuff. And can you imagine if this was in your industry, someone having this sort of growth? You wouldn't know what to do with all the business. You wouldn't know what to be able to do with all the prospects. Like, a lot of people can't cope with the amount of activity that goes on here. Now, consistency comes from having the right systems in place. And when it comes to these systems, there's certain questions that always come up that I thought I would quick fire just to be able to help you overcome them and get through. So the first one, in line with consistency, is how often should we actually be posting per day to get the results you're looking for here, Chris? Now, the answer is, if you're not posting at all right now, start with once per week. If you're posting once per week, try posting once every other day. And if you're posting once every other day, try posting once per day. But there's no point, in my personal opinion, doing more than one post per day. The second question is, should I be posting using my business account or my personal account? Should I be posting behind my business, or should I be posting behind my person, my actual brand, personal brand or business brand? Now, again, this is a unique thing that you all need to ask yourselves. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. But in business, I do have a business account, but all it has is some very, very static stock photos on, which just shows that I'm there. My time and attention goes into a personal account so I can actually be the face of my company, a bit like an Elon Musk, a bit like a Jeff Bezos, a bit like a Richard Branson, to actually then start to connect with people on a human to human level. Because at this current moment, people are more likely to trust other humans than they are other logos. So I would always say personal account would be the preference. On LinkedIn, obviously, you don't have a choice. It has to be the person. The third thing is, do you use scheduling software? The answer is yes, we do. We do use scheduling software. I use Facebook Creator Studio, which is completely free. It's Instagram and Facebook posting. And then on LinkedIn, I tend to do it manually myself, but for clients, we use something like a Hootsuite or a Buffer to be able to schedule. The best time to post actually comes from the time at which your audience are most online. Now, Instagram will tell you the best time in your Instagram insights, but actually, I don't think time's actually that important. Like, a lot of people use time as actually an excuse where, oh, it's 7 a.m. Now it's 8 a.m. So there's no point me posting now because I'm past my best time. The most important thing is actually that you show up, that you're actually here, that you actually do it and you remain consistent. So like, if you can show up at a particular time each day, then great, because being predictable is the best thing about social media. Showing up at the same time every single day is important. However, don't use it as an excuse not to post. Just get your content out there. My content ideas come from looking at other accounts for inspiration, but they come from that exercise that I said for you to do right at the beginning. Identify the pains and the problems that you want to solve, that you love to solve, and then link that up with the solutions that then do it, but talk about and use the content formula that I showed you to do. Go through the 4-step process with making the people aware of the problem, identify the context, then the content, and then the call to action. When you do this, trust me, opportunities become really, really frequently and often. Content ideas come from researching other competitors and also following the structure of the unique stuff that we're doing. What is your ultimate aim with content? My ultimate aim with content is to generate inbound prospects via creating pain and problem generating thoughts, which generate people to come into my inbox looking for the solution. Now, if you've got any other questions, please drop them in the chat box and we'll go through it. Because success on social media really, for me, comes up with showing our faces every single day. With that clear strategy in place, talking about you and your business and what you specialize in. Okay, demonstrating the credibility, because the more visible you are, the more opportunity will come your way, and therefore the business grows along with it. The penultimate step, communication. Do you actually know the number one reason why social media was actually invented? It's a question that I ask everybody. And it's quite a simple answer. And again, I don't expect you to answer this in the comments, by the way, but it's actually to connect with other people. Now, I want you to be really honest with me here. Who has ever had a new LinkedIn connection, a new Instagram follower, a new friend on Facebook, a new YouTube subscriber, a new TikToker, a new email subscriber, and then never ever spoken to that person ever again? Be honest with me. Give me the honest answers in the comments. I really want to see this, because I know I 100% have been guilty of this. And what I then really like to think about and determine into with this is the fact that, could you imagine doing that in real life? Like, somebody has come up to you at a networking event or at a meeting, gone to reach and shake your hand, and you technically then ignore that completely, turn around and walk in the other direction. I know this is a bit like dramatic, but actually, if you think about this, the amount of people that are connecting with you and that we're blatantly ignoring, the matter of the fact is we don't actually know who that person is and what opportunity they could bring to us. So I made the conscious decision with every person that connects with me, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever, I will force myself to go and create and send them over just it's only a copy and paste message, but an introductory message, the same way that I would actually meet someone online, in person. The same way. Hello, great to meet you. My name's Chris. I'd love to know a little bit more about what you do. Yeah, great to connect. Let me know. Something simple like that. But that has generated me more opportunity than I can ever think of, because for me, I know that the bigger my network is, the bigger my business will get, because I've noticed this with all the businesses that I've researched. The more people I know, the more people that know exactly what it is that I do, the more opportunity will come my way. So I spend my time mass connecting with people on LinkedIn, mass connecting with people on Instagram, then sending the messages and then commenting. I realized to myself that if I could spend 3 hours driving up to Cumbria to go to a networking event, to speak to 30 people, to then drive 3 hours back, I could dedicate 1 hour per day connecting with people online, just having unique conversations to see how we could potentially do business together. And I think every single person, when it comes to prospecting, should be able to do the same, because as we link in with network, we move on to the fifth and the final step, which is about collaborating. It's about working with others. Now, there's a number of you online this evening, and again, you may all know each other inside the network. But how many partners could you actually do a bits of content with? Could you interview other people? Could you shout other people out? Because like the way to grow that no one really seems to talk about is working with others. Now, for me, I don't see other business owners that do the same thing as me as competitors. I see them as collaborators, because if we're on the same page, there's stuff that I'm better at than them, and there's stuff that they're better at than with me. And as long as I'm self-aware enough to know that, we can share business back and forth. And that's the way that I've been able to grow, not just my following, but my actual business contacts at the same time. I collaborate, I work with others, I generate more followers, more awareness, and more credibility by hanging around with people online, which actually then provide me with their network and integrate me into my network. Very similar to how I'm doing it right now. I guarantee it, none of you knew who I was before this presentation today. I'm hoping I'm now starting to get to know you a little bit better, and you're starting to realize that I may know a little bit about this stuff. But the question that always comes up at this point is, that's great, Chris, but how do I know who I should actually collaborate with? Now, I want to give you a list which you can screenshot, take a photo of, but this is how we do it. I make a list and I work out who is my dream collaboration. Who's the person that's got my ideal clients sitting on their books ready for me to be able to do business with them? Now, again, when it comes to collaborations, there's different ways in which you can do it. But again, LinkedIn, podcasts, email lists, YouTube, Facebook group, networking events. Like those are the key places that you can do collaborations with, right? So you can go live on LinkedIn if you've got the feature. Go live on Instagram if you've got the feature. If they've got a podcast, go and research all the podcasts in your industry and see if you can reach out and have an interview with the person that hosts it. Again, getting that added credibility. The more you're seen, the more opportunity will come your way in any business that's out there. Have you got someone that can send some emails about you and what you do? Could you find a YouTube channel that's in your industry and niche that you can get an interview on? Could you find Facebook groups that have got your target market sitting within that you can go and do an interview on and speak directly into? Are there any networking events that are going on online on Zoom right now that are in your industry that you can go and speak in? Showcase what you're about, grow your brand further. Because when you know what that is, and again, you'll notice I'm actually at this current point doing the first step of my personal branding strategy. And this is the thing that we showcase and train people on to get in a unique and leveraged system. But I leverage two main elements, which are off social media, to actually generate prospects on a larger scale. So I do my press work, which just goes into like industry magazines and all that sort of stuff. I'm not a massive fan of PR, but I like to do everything and tick every box. So I have a bit of PR that goes on. I then do a lot of public speaking like this. So I try and force myself to do 1 or 2 talks every single week. I then drive people to my Instagram profile, to my Facebook profile, to my LinkedIn, to my YouTube channel, to my podcasts. So I've got a podcast called Brand You. I have a podcast called Straight to the Point. If you type in Chris Taylor Vlogs on YouTube, you'll see my YouTube channel with loads of content. You see my LinkedIn profile with loads of articles and loads of documents on for you to look at. I have a Facebook group, which is called the Authority Academy Facebook group. And I also have an Instagram profile, which is christaylor.ig. I leverage public speaking to drive people to get even more valuable information from me from my social media profiles, making them aware that I can solve their problem, which then drives them to some form of download. Now, this part for me is absolutely gold, because for me, like a lot of you won't know this, but I have a 40,000 Instagram following, and I lost access to that. I was hacked back in September, and I lost access to that overnight. Now, I was lucky enough to get it back, but all that work for 3 years of building that following up overnight was gone. But what I had was a list of people that had been following me, that had downloaded all my guides, around about 9,000 people, that I could send an email out to get them back to my new Instagram account. Now, I was fortunate enough to get that back. However, if you're spending any time online right now, you have no control over the data that sits behind it. Your LinkedIn connections, your Facebook groups, your Instagram profiles, your TikTok, whatever it is that you're doing, you do not own that data. So the aim of the game is to generate the traffic from PR, public speaking, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and podcasting, and move people into a place where you can deliver them even more value. So that's my email list. I do a weekly blog, and I put that out there. Again, I just technically all I do is do a voice note and get it transcribed of my weekly thoughts and weekly summary of what's going on in my industry right now. And then what happens is we then run and generate sales directly from that email list. My Instagram account, all my social accounts, all of the speaking engagements that I'm doing, if I can't get people to download one of my free guides, it's going to give them loads of value, then actually this stuff isn't of actually any real value to my business. It's valuable to me, but to my business, it's where the email list comes in, because that's where we control the data and we control the assets. That's a great question around LinkedIn spamming. I'll come on to that at the end. I think we may have some time for some questions. But that is my personal branding strategy. That is what I take people through. I say this at the end of every single presentation that I do. Building my personal brand, getting myself out there is the best decision I ever made, purely because it generates business without me really having to go out there and cold call anymore. That element, that of buying leads and trying to sit there endlessly on the phone and have conversations, doesn't happen to me anymore. Because people start to realize who I am and what my business does and how good we are, we now start getting recommended. We now start getting inbound referrals. And we have enough of those to scale our business to whatever size that we want. Social media is seriously right now the biggest word of mouth referral opportunity there is on this planet that I've ever seen. So if you're not visible on it consistently, you're missing that chance, and you do not want to miss this boat. And if you're really struggling right now, as my good mate Tony would say, have a look at someone else who you think is doing really well in your industry, and don't copy, but use it as inspiration to be able to do the stuff that makes the biggest difference to you. I hope that's been helpful. I'm not too sure if we have time for questions. I think that is, yeah, bang on the hour. So my timing is all right for the speed of delivering this. But I'll happily take some if we do have some time. Danny, I don't know if you're still there, mate, at all. But yeah, I hope that's been helpful.
Indeed,
I don't know how that was. I hope that was helpful.
No, thank you so much, Chris. That was really helpful. It's interesting that a lot of the areas that you said about collaborating, that's kind of what I do myself as well. So if anyone would like to come on my podcast as well, you're more than welcome. It's about podcasts, it's about stories and things like that. But we actually have a networking group within Simply People that people are able to attend. I won't plug too much because it's a webinar, but virtual networking first Friday of every month at 2 o'clock, where people are able to meet up to 6 new people for 5-minute sessions, and it's generally attended by HR, health and safety, business managers, leaders, and occupational health providers as well. So that's a really good opportunity to kind of build those connections for people. And yeah, check out the website for all the other events that we've got, but it's a great place to collaborate. And you're spot on, Chris. I think, to be fair, I think I've said before to some people in the past, it's in the digital age, it's about not being another faceless entity. It's about being able to tell your story. And it's interesting, I posted recently about, if you was ever asked why did you start, not many people go, because I wanted to be a world leading. No, you didn't. You started for a reason, to make a difference. So when do we lose sight of that and actually become regurgitated, using the same spiel that somebody else does about class leading? Integrity is at our heart. Of course it is. Otherwise you're saying you're dishonest. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
but yeah,
so
no,
true.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much. If anybody does have any questions, please do put them through now. But if there's not, then thank you so much.
LinkedIn spam, wasn't there? So there are so many spam connecting messages at LinkedIn in brackets sales. How can we show that we are different? So one of the things that I do, you got to be brave when you're doing it, but I actually send a voice note to people. So send a voice note. It's not a sale. It's literally like I was meeting that person at a meeting, at a networking event, just like, hey, look, hey, Danny, how you doing? Thank you so much for connecting with me. Just thought I'd reach out. Not many people seem to network on here these days. They look to just pitch you. I'm just genuinely interested to find out a little bit more about what you do. Look forward to hearing from you, but no pressure whatsoever. Have a great day. Speak soon. Like something so simple. And then if they come back and they go, yeah, this is what I do. This is why I connected with you. I'll then have a deeper conversation with them. But for me, it's just about creating those touch points and knowing that my content will touch them at some point and it will connect with them. And if it doesn't, they're not my ideal client. So it's totally cool.
Absolutely. That's a perfect answer. Thank you very much. Hopefully, Asa, that answered your question. And I think that's it. It's 3 minutes past, so we're bang on an hour from when we started. There's no other questions. Chris, thank you so much. We have recorded the session. I will put it out through the website as well. It'll be up live over the next few days. Thanks so much for attending, everybody. Good night. I don't know why you always wave at the end, don't you? You go, thanks a lot. Bye. Bye. Thanks for coming.